What's up, guys? Welcome back to K.D.P programming. This is part 16 of our SQL fundamentals, and in today's video we'll be doing the last part of our CRUD section. So if you've been following the series, you've noticed that we've been doing create, read, update, and finally in today's video we are going to be dealing with the delete part of our CRUD section. So if you haven't watched the full series or the previous videos, you can find links to the videos or the full series in the description box below. So without wasting any of your time, let's get straight into this. If you have been following the series, you probably have seen this document here. This is our database sample document. This is actually what our database is based on. So in today's video, we'll actually be doing the delete part, and we'll be finally creating our last table, which is our GPA table, which is this table. So to save you guys some time, I've already created the script to create the table and insert the data. So if you're not familiar with how to create tables in your SQL and how to insert data to your tables, I have made dedicated videos on those sections. You can find the link to those videos in the description box below. So in this video, I'll actually be creating our last table, which is our GPA table. I'll be inserting the data, and we're going to go through the delete example based on our GPA table. So now let me just actually run everything here. So you can see that our GPA table is created. Let's just refresh there and see if it's there in our database list. So there's our GPA table. So this is the data that we have in our GPA table. So when you're dealing with delete, so the delete action, it actually allows you to delete rows or records from your database or from a table. So let's say, for an example, now you wanted to delete this record here with the ID of 1. So this is what you use. You would use the delete statement to get rid of that record. So unfortunately, when you delete, you cannot delete a value in a column. So for an example, you cannot delete this A here. But what you could do is you could actually update that to something that you want it to be, or you can actually update it to null if you want it to be empty. So now I'm going to write the delete statement just to show you guys how it looks. So our delete statement looks something like this. So it goes like delete, then you specify the table that you want to delete from. So you say delete from, then you want to delete from our GPA table, and you say delete from GPA. And if you say delete from GPA and you don't specify your where clause, it is actually going to delete everything in your table. So when you delete, it's the same operation as when you update your records. You must specify which records you want to delete or which records you want to update. Like I said, they work similar. You have to give it the where clause to tell it which records to match. So now let's say I wanted to delete a record in my table. Let's say I want to delete the last record, this record here with an ID of 12. So now I'm going to say delete from the GPA, which is our table, where our ID is equal to 12. And I run that query. So now you can see that it says one row affected. Like I said before, if you're dealing with the delete statement and it says one row affected, it means one row was deleted. And if you're dealing with an update or insert, it means one row was updated or inserted. So now let's just go and query our table. Let's see what it looks like. So now you can see that we have 12 records, and then the record that had the ID of 12 is actually deleted. So what I said before about you cannot delete a value inside a column, but you can actually update that value to the right value that you want, or you can update it to null. So you can actually do something like this. So let's say maybe you wanted to update this value here of J2 in the record of ID 11. You wanted to update it to null. So you could write something like this. You can say update, then you specify your table name, which is our GPA, then you say set, and you say the column that you want to update. And if you're not familiar with the update statement, I do believe that we did this in the previous videos. I can put the link to the video in the description box below for that. So now we say set the column name, we want to make it null, is equal to null. And please pay attention when you want to update your records to null. There's a huge difference between null, sorry, let me just do this, between null and null. There's actually a huge difference between these two. And I think I do believe I've explained this before in the previous videos. I just can't point out which one it was. But the first one here, it's actually null. This is what we call null. But the second one here, this is not null. This is actually text that reads null, or it's an input or a value that reads null. This is a null, and this is a value that says, or text that says null. So for an example, now if I want to update my GPA table and set letter grade to null, let's say where ID is equal to, I want to update the very last column, which has an ID of 12, sorry, ID of 11. So let's just say 11 there, and I run that query. Or actually, this is not going through now because of what we have in our table. When we created our table, it says, you can see here, it gave us a table, and it says string or binary data will be truncated in the table. This is because I'm trying to input the text now into a column that actually holds less characters than what I'm trying to give it to. So let's just go to our table and see what our letter grade actually holds. Our letter grade actually allows 2 characters. So what we could do is we could actually try to alter that. Let's do something like alter table, table GPA, alter column. We want our column. Let's just see that column there, we make it voucher, and we say, let's just give it a value of 10. It is not null. Now you can see that it says my statement was completed successfully. And if I go here to my columns in this GPA table, we can actually see here that it says my letter grade now holds 10 characters. So now let's try and run this again. So now you can see that says 1 row was affected. That means 1 row was updated. So let's just query the table again. And now you can see here, when you look at this record, you see here the null in this column, or the null in these 2 cells. It has this other color in it, but then the null in this column, it has no color in it. That actually tells you that you can see that all these columns, or all the cells here without colors, they actually hold values, they actually hold data. But here, the ones that are null, you can see that it has a color code in it. Depending on the IDE that you use, some of the IDEs might put your null into a specific font or specific format, or they might be in italic, but you will actually see that that null looks different than what you have in other cells. So like I said, this is not a null. This is the value that says null. So always remember that when you update your values to null, you don't have to put single quotes, because if you put single quotes, it actually tells the system that you are putting values. So now let's just update that back to null. So we say where ID is equal to 11. Oh, and now that actually fails, it says you cannot enter the null value into the column because we actually gave it a constraint of not null. Yeah, we can do that. We can actually alter that and say, let's just make that null. So we can put null in there. So now if I refresh this, you see the not null here is supposed to disappear and just tell me that now the value or the column holds null variables. So let's just refresh that, go back to our table, to our columns. Now you can see that it says null and doesn't say not null anymore. So let's just run the statement again. Let's update that. And now if we query our table, you can see that the null is there. So now let's actually delete. Let's go to delete and delete the values or the records that we don't want. So in this table, I actually entered the 3 last columns, these columns, as test values or as junk data to test with. So already deleted the last one, which had an ID of 12. So now let's actually delete the ones that have the last 2 with the ID of 10 and 11. And just like with the update, you can delete multiple records depending on the condition that you set. So remember, when it comes to your work class acts the same way it acts when you are updating your values with the update statement. So now what you could do is we can say delete from, then we specify our table, where our ID, you can actually put things like in, or you can actually put things like where ID is greater and equal to. You can actually put whatever test condition that you think will meet your requirements for the specific action. So for now, let's not use in actually, let's just use where my ID is actually greater than 9, because I actually want to delete the two last records, which is ID of 10 and 11. So these two IDs, they're actually greater than 9. Or you can do something like where your ID is in, and then you put the 9 and you put the 10 and 11 in there. And if you're not sure of how the in operator works, there's a dedicated video for that. You can find the link to that in the description box below. So let's just remove that. I think it's just too much work, or it's too much code. I think it's just better than doing the greater than 9. So let's just execute this. And now you can see that it says 2 rows have been affected. That means 2 rows have been deleted. So if I just query our GPA table, you can see that this is the data that we have with 9 records. So I actually don't want the letter grade table to hold null variables. So I'm just going to take that back to having not null values. So I'm actually going to alter that, and I want it to hold 2 characters. So 2 and not null. That it's fine. Let's query our table again. There's our table, and if we refresh this, you can see that our letter grade column, now it says not null and it holds 2 characters. So that was pretty much it when it comes to the delete operator. There's nothing too much into it. Just remember that when you delete your records, specify your where condition, or else you'll end up deleting everything in your table. So for in case, if I don't specify this, the where condition here, and I said just delete from GPA, and I do that, it's going to delete everything in my record. So now if I query my GPA table, you can actually see that there's nothing in there. Let me just do that. So now my data is inserted again. So if I just query that, you can see that the same data, it's there again. So that's pretty much everything. Like I said, there's nothing too much into it. If you watched this far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and share this video with your friends. And I'll see you guys in the next video, where I believe we'll actually be starting with our functions. So until then, take care and cheers.